Before we start, just a quick reminder. The views and content shared on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and are not a substitute for professional advice. Please check the full disclaimer in the show notes for more information.
Welcome to Self-Centered, the podcast that's all about you. We're your hosts.
I'm Allie, a therapist and life coach.
And I'm Katie, a fitness coach and personal trainer. We know what it's like to feel burnt out, taken for granted, and like your life revolves around everyone but yourself.
By learning to trust yourself, prioritize your needs, and set healthy boundaries, we help you break free from guilt, overfunctioning, and toxic patterns that keep you stuck in relationships and a life that doesn't truly serve you.
Join us each week as we dive into the tools, stories, and mindset shifts you need to create a life that centers you.
Because being self-centered isn't selfish, it's essential. Welcome back to Self-Centered. Today, we are going to talk about self-esteem. So what is it really? We're going to debunk some common misconceptions, explain why it matters, and then we're going to talk about how do you develop it, how do you maintain it, how do you protect it, so you could be a self-esteemed selfie, an esteemed selfie.
An esteemed, oh wow, say that 6 times fast. Esteemed selfie, self-esteem. Nope. Okay, moving on.
A selfie esteemed. All right. So we hear a lot about self-esteem, but what does it actually mean? And how do we build real lasting self-esteem instead of just chasing these quick fixes? And many of us were taught, well, I'm curious what you have thought in the past self-esteem was. Because I know for me that I always thought when I heard, oh, that person has really good self-esteem, I'm like, oh, they think they're the best. They think they're better than everyone else. Like they think. And so I thought the goal for me to have self-esteem was to feel like I'm great, like the best at this, the best at that. Everyone wants to be my friend. And that's definitely not the case.
I didn't necessarily believe that self-esteem was like a pompous type of attitude. I attribute it more to like belief in yourself and confidence and like knowing that you are doing your very best and
like
more
your
about
own version of that.
Yes, it's a comparison of you versus you. However, I compare me versus me all the time, and as a recovering perfectionist, it's fucking hard because I always know I could do better, and my self-esteem turns into shit.
That's actually a really good point. It's like you could be like, oh, it's me versus me, and I'm failing always because I'm not perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm interested to see where we go with this because, like, obviously I know where we're going with this, but I'm interested to understand it because that is like a tough part for me. Is like, okay, I know I'm good. I know that I do things well and I'm a good person and I believe that I have worth intrinsically, but believing that I believe that.
Yeah, it's like the difference between intellectually believing that and like feeling like it's true.
That one. Yeah, my brain goes down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So many of us were taught that self-esteem comes from achievements, praise, or being liked by others. But that's not real self-esteem. Spoiler alert, I'm sure you could guess that. Can you imagine if we came on here and we were like, so you have to achieve what other people think is really important. You have to make sure that people like you. We're the opposite of that. We're like, you do you. So we're going to talk about what self-esteem is, what it isn't, why does it matter, and then how do you build and protect it. Self-esteem, very basic definition, is like how do you see and value yourself? So it's your self-respect, your self-acceptance, and your belief in your worth. And it is internal, right? So it's not based on these external conditions of worth, meaning that it's not based on other people's perspectives and it's not based on your achievements or anything like that. So here's some common misconceptions. This is kind of how I thought before. It's not about being perfect. I thought it was. I thought it was like being this ideal character. I don't know, this ideal version or idea that we have. I used to, when I was younger, I would never leave the house without makeup. I would always have my hair done and the perfect outfit. And it was like, yeah, you have to always look perfect. You have to always be happy. You have to be successful at everything. yeah, like you just have to be good at everything. And if you're not, you can't let people know that because then they'll know that you're not perfect. And so the way to have good self-esteem is to be perfect and to make sure that everyone doesn't see the cracks in that.
I'm curious if you had a similar experience to what I did. I'm thinking about this now, and is that generational? Because I'm thinking about like what I observed. Let's say my mom. My mom was older when she had me. She was in her late 30s. My dad was in his early 40s. So I was raised by older parents, surrounded by older families and people. And I do remember mom never left the house without being prim, proper, makeup totally done, hair totally done. Like you wouldn't even see her near a window without that shit. And like the attire had to be a certain way. You can't leave with wrinkles on your shirt. And I think back, and I'm thinking back to like the I Love Lucy era and like, shows like that. And that was very characteristic of that too. Yeah. And so I'm just curious, did you observe that too in, people older than you when you were
kids? For sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that what is considered perfect or what is valued depends on the generation, the culture, the community that you're in. But I think that what is timeless is that people will try to be whatever that generation or that culture or that community's version of perfect is if they're taught to condition, like that their worth is conditional based on meeting that. And I was raised in a very affluent area in Connecticut. It was very much about appearances and also it was a little confusing for me when I started to explore and reflect on what are my actual beliefs, because I am such a visual person and I love things to be aesthetically pleasing, and I love makeup and I love hair and I love, kind of stereotypical femme vibes. So it was confusing to me because for a while I did not know, do I prefer this or enjoy this because it's just internalized as that's, or is it that that's truly what I enjoy? And what I learned is that I do love all that stuff. And I also love being a bum, like I love, honestly, the majority of the time I look like a little scrub, and so I love not having that be absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
And having it just be for fun. And because
I think, as I think about that now, as feel like I've improved my self-esteem or like, become more confident or more assured within myself, it's the difference between I feel like I need to hide and I hope no one sees me like this versus, oh, okay, cool. Like this is what I am today. And I'm chilling and like one way or another, I am the same. Yes. Whether I am dolled up or not. And when I am dolled up, I'm like, damn, I look good. Yeah. And I'm feeling myself, but I'm not ashamed or, nervous about running into someone.
Yes. No, I think that's a good distinction. Yeah. Self-esteem isn't about being perfect. It's also not about being good at something, because you can have high self-esteem even if you're bad at something. And I would even go further and say that high self-esteem means that you can be bad at things and be fine with it because your self-respect and your worth is not based on being good at everything. And that's so unrealistic, right? So like part of having high self-esteem is having more realistic standards and standards that align with who you are. But we'll get into that. It's also not about other people liking you. So if your self-esteem depends on approval, then it's other-esteem. It's not self-esteem. Right? If you're a selfie, your self-esteem, it comes from you and your own perspectives and what really matters to you. So if it's about other people and their perspective on you, then your self-esteem is really fragile and it's not actually real self-esteem. And it's not the same as arrogance. If you have self-esteem, like confidence is not the same as being cocky. True self-esteem has humility, right? It's open to and assumes that you're going to get things wrong or you're going to make mistakes, and you don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to prove your worth. Confidence is quiet, but cocky is loud.
Yeah. That's one I would have to, like, I get it. And I feel like that's good to sit with for a minute of like, oh, if you take offense when someone corrects or tries to help, then you probably have a fragile self-esteem,
right?
Or your self-esteem
insecure. Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. My facial expressions get a little weird.
Okay, anyway, it's just because sometimes when we talk about things on the podcast, we'll start talking about it and we're not planning on it meaning anything about someone in our lives, like either of our lives. But then when we're talking about it, sometimes it'll click and it'll click at the same time for us and we both know, but we can't talk about it. It's kind of like when you're at a party or like you're out with your bestie and you like give each other the look and you're like, we're going to talk about this later, right? You know what I mean? Like it's like that kind of thing. So anyway, we're going to talk about that later. Anyway, so
we keep doing that.
I know, right? Well, yeah, we have a lot of things. We got some follow-up. We have the pod and then we have our personal pod, which is just our friendship. Okay, so why does self-esteem matter? Because it affects everything. Like literally everything. Your relationships, your work, your success, your happiness, right? So in relationships, if you don't believe that you deserve respect and love, you're going to settle for less. Right. And you will also, you're more vulnerable to getting pulled into the standards and values and perspectives that someone else has because you're not anchored in your own. Because self-esteem is about, I compare me to me based on realistic standards, based on my own values that, again, we want them to be kind and loving values, so not the perfectionistic ones. But if you don't have those, if you're not anchored in that, you're easily swayed by someone else. It also affects your work and your success. So if you have low self-esteem, you probably doubt yourself. You're more vulnerable to that. You have fear of failure. So you might end up overworking yourself or making decisions based on fear instead of self-confidence and knowing what you can and can't do, right? Like a legitimate understanding of these are my limitations and these are my strengths. So I'm making this choice versus I'm doing this because I'm avoiding these things that I'm scared of, right? Those create very different outcomes. And then low self-esteem makes you more likely to be anxious, to feel depressed, and to people please, which goes back to what we're saying before about if you're not anchored in pleasing yourself and being aligned with your own values, then you're going to use these standards outside of yourself and you're going to want to please people, right? To be given the gold star, the A+. So people with real self-esteem don't rely on other people and their opinions to feel good about themselves. And they also don't shrink themselves for approval or overwork to prove that they're worthy. So it kind of goes back a little bit to confidence is quiet. You're just assured of yourself. So you don't have to overwork or prove yourself. You could just be chilling. You do the work that you think you need to do and you don't do more. And then the other side of that, which is like you also don't shrink yourself or make yourself smaller because you feel bad about yourself and want to hide. So how do you even develop real self-esteem? The first thing you need to do is shift from external validation to internal validation. So this goes back to something we've talked about before, which is what matters is what you think of you, not what they think of you. So instead of asking, do they like me? Ask, do I like me? Right? And of course, you'll want to go deeper. And if the answer is no, you'll want to say, well, why? And where did I learn these beliefs? What needs to be true about me? Or what do I believe needs to be true about me? What do I have to achieve? What do I have to look like? What do I have to think, believe, feel in order to be likable or to like myself? And when you write that out, you can look and see, oh, it's going to be pretty obvious. Like, ooh, I have this belief that I've internalized and I probably want to work on that. So catch moments where you seek validation and practice self-affirmation instead. So what that means is when you notice yourself being like, oh, I'm fishing for compliments or I'm looking for reassurance, then you want to come back to, well, how can I talk to myself? How can I be there for myself? Just like I would talk to someone that I love. Again, there's this double standard that we have between ourselves and other people where we're more harsh on ourselves. So think of someone that you love and you respect, and how would I talk to them if they were dealing with the same thing? And you're probably going to be kinder. And I also want to just throw in here a little reminder. I've said this before. Assurance, like seeking assurance, right? Checking in with other people for a second opinion and a reality check, totally fine. It's just the reassurance. So continually doing that, because you can't just anchor yourself into, okay, here's what's true. I did check, because that will lead to a spiral of you overthinking about yourself and criticizing.
Something that comes up for me when I think about that process, especially if I was someone building my self-esteem and I exist with a low self-esteem, going from maybe there's a certain situation that is causing me to feel even like I have a lower self-esteem, trying to say, do I like me when I'm someone with low self-esteem feels really big and
No,
feels
that's a
really
good point.
hard. And maybe a smaller digestible bite is, do I like how I behaved in this situation? Do I like how I spoke to this person? Does what I'm doing right now align with traits, behaviors, characteristics, feelings, things that I want to embody and that I think are valuable?
Yeah.
And long term, of course, we want to be able to get to the I like me.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. But maybe if we're not there yet, and if that feels too big, we can make it a little bit smaller bite, and we can make it something that it's not outside of yourself, but it is less.
It's just contextualizing it to like a smaller, it's qualifying it to, do I like the way I blank, right? Do I like this piece, this part? Yeah.
Yeah. I think especially because I'm the person that would try to hold all of me all at once. And like, as I would be the person building my self-esteem, I'm also holding all the ways I fucked up.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to hold those two together until you realize that growth is okay. And actually a great thing. And it doesn't disqualify you. So that if it feels too big to say, do I like me? And you're like, no, or I feel uncomfortable asking myself that, maybe just take this moment. And if you build up enough moments, they can redefine self.
You know, what you're talking about is the next step. And what I realized as you were talking, so I'm so glad you brought that up, is that shifting from external to internal validation is the goal, but it's not the first step, right? It's not the step to get there. That's the end goal because external validation is other-esteem and internal validation is self-esteem. So if step one is have self-esteem, is not going to be very helpful. And I love that what you brought up is what I had for step two. Now we're just going to make it step one.
Great.
Yeah.
I love that.
So step one is identify what are my values and what are my boundaries. So you can live by your own standards, not other people's standards. So you can start by defining like 3, maybe even up to 5 personal values and commit to honoring them. And then you can ask yourself in these situations, did I act in alignment with that value? Did I protect that boundary? And so it isn't, do I like myself? Do I have self-esteem yet? It's like a kid. Are we there yet? It's like, we just got in the car. We identified our values. And yes, we just aligned with one of them. Great. Good job. We're on our way to Disney World. And so I'm just going to give some examples of personal standards and values and like what it looks like to honor those in daily life, just so you can get a sense of them. And then you can identify them for yourself, Selfie. I really recommend that you actually do this, because if you just listen to the pod and you don't put it into practice, pod practice, then yeah.
Oh my God, we should have a segment, pod practice.
Well, I feel like our little pod practice is throughout, so maybe we'll just call out this is pod practice. Yeah.
Okay.
Pod
hey,
in
AI,
practice.
Put that in there though. Remind us later.
Should we call it pod practice or pod in practice?
No, I think pod practice is better.
Yeah, I agree. Also, Can you hear bugs
Yes, I
squeaking?
can. Yes, just started.
No. She's literally just sitting there going, oh my gosh. All right. I think she stopped. All right. So, a personal standard, and I think this is also a value, is self-respect. So how do you honor it? So speaking to yourself with kindness and not engaging in self-criticism. So when you notice yourself engaging in self-criticism, that's okay, right? That's the autopilot. That's your operating system. But once you notice it, you can say, well, how would I speak to myself right now if this were my friend going through this? One way to practice self-respect. Walking away from people who mistreat or devalue you is a way to honor self-respect. Dressing, speaking, behaving in ways that make you feel proud of yourself. The dressing piece makes me think that it's like, I just want to make sure everyone knows I'm not implying that you shouldn't dress like a hoe. Go dress like a hoe. Have fun. Be proud of it, right? But it's just like, what are your values? Because maybe that's not your value. For me, sometimes it is. For me, sometimes it isn't, right? So it's really about you. Integrity is another personal standard, right? So what does it look like to honor that? Following through on your promises, even when it's inconvenient. Telling the truth instead of saying what people want to hear. Holding yourself accountable for mistakes instead of making excuses. Maybe authenticity is a value that you have, and you honor that by showing up as your true self, even if it means that some people won't like you. So did I show up as my true self and then someone didn't like me? Okay, I get points for that because I acted in alignment with my own values, right? Expressing your opinions rather than agreeing just to fit in. Making choices that align with your values, not these societal expectations. Ooh, one more. Self-care. Prioritizing self-care can be a value that you have, right? So like prioritizing rest, nourishment, movement without guilt. Take breaks when you feel burned out instead of pushing through. Choose jobs, relationships, environments that support your peace. Once you identify these are values and standards that I have, and again, you can literally just start with 3, then you can compare, okay, after this experience that I just had, did I honor those? And if I didn't, you don't have to get down on yourself. One of the values I'm hoping is growth. So you're like, oh no, I didn't. Well, growth and learning, right? So, oh no, I didn't. And right now I'm looking at it and learning from it. Oh, so shit, I did, right? I didn't honor this value, but guess what? I'm engaging in growth and learning around it right now. So I engage this other value, is good. And changing your self-talk. So, I'm learning and growing, I think is really, really important. I think that's like a number one. So how do you maintain and protect your self-esteem? It's so hard right now with social media because we just, without even realizing it, just subconsciously, we start comparing ourselves to other people. When you see things over and over again, repetition leads to internalization. And when you're scrolling, you got a lot of repetition. And so I think it's really good to maybe have some boundaries on social media in terms of like, well, what are the things that I want to be exposing myself to? Like, what are the beliefs? What are the type of people that I want to be seeing? I remember in the past, I personally had some internalized fat phobia that I recognized, and I deliberately started following people who weren't super thin, people who were big, people who are fat. And it really completely changed everything. Like, you can use social media as a tool to actually create new wiring. Yeah. So if repetition leads to internalization, we can use it for good. Mm-hmm. So you maybe want to be more intentional about your social media use, what you're following, have some boundaries around it. Also remind yourself that someone else's success doesn't diminish you. And also, social media truly is a highlight reel.
Yeah, that's so true. And I want to add a bit for those of you who recognize that your social media is causing you to play the comparison game. Mm-hmm. It's not just about who you follow now. It is about the content you interact with. And this is something that I've had to, because social media stresses me out so much, but I have to use it for my business, for multiple businesses. Fuck. So I have to be really intentional because I am on social media. And if I'm going to be on social media, I don't want the first thing popping up to be something that's going to suck me down the rabbit hole of comparison games. So not only is it, okay, I had to unfollow the things that caused me to start playing the comparison game, I need to follow things that are supportive of the beliefs that I want to continue to foster. And the suggested posts that you get, this pisses me off about Instagram, is like you can only snooze suggested posts for 30 days at a time. You can't permanently snooze them, which is really annoying.
I didn't even know you could snooze them at all, so that's good information.
Yeah, I know. So it's like there's the sponsored content, there's the reels you may liked, and then there's the suggested posts. So it feels like 2 out of the 3 things that you're looking at when you scroll are things that you don't follow. That being said, if you click, you watch multiple times. If you like, if you comment, if you scroll through comments, if you start liking comments, that adds into your algorithm.
Yeah.
And that information, then the social media companies will use and say, oh, we need more content like this.
Yeah.
So this is also that like moment of practicing restraint that I'm guilty, that I will like go down the rabbit hole of, especially when the politics stuff is coming out.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this stresses me out so much. And so I'm like reading comments and shit. And then I start getting more political reels. And I'm like, I don't want more political reels.
Yeah. So go get that somewhere else. Like if you see something, then like go Google it.
Yes. Like you need to be intentional about your interactions on social media for the content that you're trying to filter. So now I only comment, like, and share and respond to puppy videos. The more that I share people's puppy videos, the more puppy videos I get. That's what I want my social media feed to be right now.
That's the social media environment you want to live in. Yeah, no, definitely. I was laughing as you were talking because I saw this post the other day that was like, I sneezed, like I had a sneeze attack when a reel about frogs showed up, and now I'm getting his frogs on my feed.
Oh no.
Yeah, because it's also like it's not just like engagement doesn't just mean that you're actively doing something. It also means that it's remained on your screen. So like as you're scrolling, they'll notice how much, like 2 seconds on this before they moved on, or like 10 seconds on this. Oh, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, one of the best ways to create new emotional beliefs. So what Katie and I were talking about in the beginning of like, intellectually, you believe that you are unconditionally worthy. Emotionally, you feel like you're not, right? And so how do you emotionally believe that you are worthy of respect, you are unconditionally worthy, you have unconditional value, all of that stuff? And it is through behavior. So even before you believe or feel like it's true that you are worthy of respect or you have unconditional value, think about, how would I be acting if I did believe that, if I truly believe that? And then if you start acting that way, it actually sends a message to your brain, and it's more of this like subconscious emotional message that, oh, I must respect myself. Oh, I must not tolerate this bullshit. Oh, I must be better than this, And so I think it's actually really great because you don't actually have to feel or believe or think that you are unconditionally valuable. You just have to act like it. And then over time, you're going to start believing that. So people with high self-esteem don't tolerate disrespect. So don't tolerate disrespect, right? And learn to say no, even if you feel guilty. Because that feeling and that belief that's associated with it of it's not okay to say no and put myself first because that makes me selfish, that's also a belief that will shift over time if you say no anyway, right? So you're going to act in alignment with your goals and with your values and what you want to believe, not in alignment with the way that you feel. And then eventually your feelings will be aligned. And then, just like we've said about the double standard, take care of yourself like you would someone that you love. So treat yourself with respect through rest, nourishment, self-care. Keep promises to yourself that builds self-trust, which builds self-esteem.
That is so important. That is so important. I got nothing to add aside from that, but that is so important.
Why do you think it's so important, or how do you know that it's so important?
For one, it is the action in repetition that if I don't keep the promise to myself, well, yes, I don't trust myself, but also I know what I've done before. And like that self-talk circle starts going of like, oh, okay, I'm going to promise myself I'm going to work out. And there is the moment, like this is an example, okay, that, oh, I'm going to work out when I get off of work. And the number of times that I've promised myself that, and then I haven't followed through on that, as soon as I say, oh, I'm going to promise myself I'm going to, work out when I get off of work and I'm going to prioritize myself for a few minutes, literally that moment, the thought enters, no, you won't. Like that moment, because I've already established a pattern.
Yeah.
I've already established a set of behaviors that, okay, I do the one thing, I say I'm going to do the one thing. And for me, well, I end up becoming the lowest person on my own totem pole. And then I prioritize other things. And so then that spills over elsewhere too.
Yeah.
No,
for sure.
it just gets a really shitty habit.
So before we end, I'm just thinking about my own journey of self-esteem and what sticks out the most in terms of the benefit of finally having real self-esteem. And immediately, what comes up for me is something I struggled with for so long, years and years and years and years, and actively tried to work on, and then got lost in my own thoughts and fears and came back to it and worked on it more. And now I'm finally here where I really have self-esteem and don't have to deal with this anymore. And it's when I'm in a conversation with someone, and usually it's someone who I'm close to and they have different standards and values than I do. They have different beliefs than I do. And in the past, still, these types of people will try to get me to be like, no, you're wrong. And then because I want to be an open-minded person who considers other perspectives, I will consider that perspective. But in the past, there wouldn't be a limit on me considering that perspective. So basically what would end up happening is I would keep being open to it and keep asking myself and imagining myself through their perspective of, oh, maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I don't have compassion for them. Maybe I am overreacting. And it really pulled me away from who I am. And then I worked on that. And I was able to get to a place where I was like, okay, I'm going to still consider it, but then I'm going to limit it. So I'm not going to keep thinking about it. So it'd be like, okay, they think that I'm overreacting and I'm oversensitive. Okay, I disagree with that. That's not my perspective, which is huge progress because it's like, okay, I can stop the spiral. Like I'm not going there. But it would get to this place where I would still be trying to convince them because they'd be trying to convince me. They'd be trying to convince me over and over and over again. And instead of me realizing this is just not working and just accepting that, I would keep trying to make it work by being like, oh, well, we have different perspectives. Maybe my standards have become higher. Because I think when we say your standards need to be higher, we think of, okay, well, don't put up with disrespect, which is true. But I think our standards being higher also means there are going to be kind people who are great and who you love, and it's still not a good fit for you to be in a friendship with them, to be in a relationship with them, because it just doesn't work because your values and your perspectives and your standards are not aligned. Mm-hmm. And I think developing real self-esteem allowed me to finally recognize that. Like this is something that I only just in the last couple of months clicked for me, where I was kind of like, oh, compatibility isn't making it work to that extent. Do you know what I mean? And so does that make sense?
Yeah, the way I perceive what you're saying is like someone might say something in terms of like, oh, this is a belief that I have and I'm trying to put that belief onto you because I believe it's the right belief. Mm-hmm. And if you were to not have strong self-esteem, you would put yourself in their shoes to experience that. Mm-hmm. And then say, oh yeah, it does make sense from their experience. It must be wrong from my experience.
Yeah.
Yep. And when you do have strong self-esteem, you can leave that in their bubble.
Yes.
You can say that is true. And that's okay for you to have over here. And it's also true that my view of it is correct as well.
Yeah.
And I can keep it in my bubble.
Yes, I love that you said that. So, yes, and there's actually 3 steps. So, when I was at the lowest self-esteem, I was in their bubble and didn't have one of my own, right? So, I lost myself. I was not centered in myself. I left my seat and just completely did not know who I was. I finally got to a better place of self-esteem, more self-esteem, where I was like, this is my bubble and this is their bubble. And that's great. What I'm saying is recently I've gotten to a place where even higher self-esteem where I've recognized our bubbles can't coexist.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in the past, I was like, I don't know, I guess I just kind of forced it. And I do think that that is related to self-esteem because self-esteem is about standards and values. And I recently realized that a new standard that I have or a new value that I have is that I'm not going to force it. And I didn't know I was forcing it before. I mean, like, but that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
So
no, that does make sense.
I just wanted to offer it because I think it's something that's different than the way that we usually think about self-esteem. But I think a lot of the selfies will be able to relate to that.
Yeah, because it's almost like this radical acceptance of other people's experiences.
Yeah.
It just sets us up, though, if we take that too far, it sets us up to diminish our own experience, or you're right, it's just not compatible. The 2 bubbles are going to pop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
If they're in the same room and they touch.
So what you're saying is the radical acceptance of other people's experiences is we are 2 bubbles that I think can coexist and make it work. But really, it's actually forcing it. And
yes,
the bubble's going to pop. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Yeah. And now I'm thinking about, so what does it look like to have those shared values and standards? And they're not exactly the same. So I think about you and me and our friendship. And I think it's like our bubbles are like a Venn diagram. Mm-hmm. And you and I get to hang out together in the place where it overlaps. And the place where it doesn't overlap doesn't harm either of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything, do you have any thoughts on you don't have to, but like self-esteem in terms of like going from lower self-esteem to higher self-esteem and like what the biggest benefit for you?
For me, it's literally just that, that take it in small chunks. Because it is hard to hold all of it all at once. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're someone like me who came from your religious background and whatnot, that wasn't necessarily a healthy religious background. And there's some shame associated with, look at all the things you've done wrong. And especially, now I'm thinking about some shit.
Yeah.
But especially, I'm thinking about that and like, okay, as someone who is now not really tied to that belief system, but there's still inklings of that belief system left. Mm. Okay, religion, Christianity, the belief system I was tied to, believes that the only atonement for the shit that you've done wrong is repentance. If I have inklings of belief in God or a higher power, which also stems from my original belief in Christianity, and now I don't believe that, okay, I don't believe in that religion, so I don't have access to repentance, then I do have to hold the shit I've done wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do have to hold that, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
it's just
I think
like
we have
how
to take personal
justified guilt, like when guilt is a signal, it's like, okay, I'm holding this and I'm learning from it and I'm letting it change my personal values and standards.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Whereas, before, when I was in a toxic form of religion, it was like, well, the only way you can get rid of that is if some outside thing takes it from you. Mm. If you're willing to give it up, God, if you repent. But now it's like, no, I actually have to take responsibility for the thing that I did wrong and choose to change my behavior to improve it, to align with the things that I believe are right. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
Great.
All right. So in summary, self-esteem isn't about being perfect. It's about knowing that you're worthy exactly as you are. And as long as you are acting in alignment with your own values and your own standards, then you're good. So share your biggest takeaway with us. Let us know if there's anything that we talked about today that you want us to dive into, and we will.
Great.
We'll talk to you next time.
Peace.
Bye. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Follow us on Instagram at selfcentered.pod or connect with us at selfcenteredthepod@gmail.com.
Stay self-centered, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Peace.